Because we right now basically live in an attention economy, and in this economy you need to really think in again differently how to grab attention of your audience and give them something again fun, meaningful to play with. Back then, you probably remember these clunky banners right now on somewhere in a interface in a website. But right now we live in an era where advertising is much more interactive, and so we use gamification. We utilize the augmented reality technology and merge this together and use it in a kind of new context in the social media, and it's really blow up.
There's a stat I saw you post about recently, like that gaming makes up about 26% of all
Yeah,
content consumption hours.
yeah,
If I watch a movie, a long movie is 3 hours. A standard movie is like an hour and a half, 2 hours. God of War, like a blockbuster game, that's like 40 hours of gameplay. Right? So like the amount of time that a user spends interacting with a movie versus interacting with one story dedicated in a gaming experience, it's drastically longer. It's not just how many people can we get in front of, but how deep of a connection can we make with those people.
I met a Rick!
Welcome back to another episode of Meta Rick, where we talk with innovative founders, with business leaders, with creative technologists about new technologies like XR and artificial intelligence. Today's guest is a very experienced creative technologist, Ivan Pavliuchenko. I'm known for messing up names, but I hope that's close. A little bit about him. He's the managing director and co-founder from AREYES Studio. They were founded back in 2019, and they're a creative engineering studio that focuses on immersive technologies and gamification. So basically, that's building engaging game-like advertisements that leverage augmented reality, game design, and interactive web experiences to help drive more engagement through these ads for huge brands like Sony Music, Stellantis, Henkel, L'Oreal. The list kind of goes on and on. And before that, he had over 8 years in digital marketing and product management and has been around the creative space for quite some time. So, Ivan, we're excited to learn a little bit more about your story and talk through what you've got going on running the studio. Maybe we could start with just hearing a little bit about your background. Like, how'd you start your career and what pulled you towards immersive technologies?
yeah. Once again, yeah, thank you, Rick, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here finally. So in terms of the journey, it's actually I'm from the early age was a really big fan of gaming and the storytelling. Um, so my background was started as a bachelor degree in economic cybernetic, and then I jumped to the master degree in marketing. When I understand the marketing is the kind of the very dynamic field where you have a power to deliver the message to the consumer, to the people, and I find this very interesting for myself, and decide to pursue this kind of journey, working with the corporate environment, then really try to dive into a little bit more creative space, where I basically built the marketing department in one of the web studio at that time. Back in originally, I'm from Ukraine, but this studio was like one of the top 100 web agency worldwide, according by Awwwards. And then I was first. This was my first, let's say, introduction with immersive technology as it is, with augmented reality. I really understand the power of this technology as the like storytelling tools, because everything else bef- before, I mean, in Facebook ads and Google ads and stuff like that, we basically, how to say, like, consume the content, we view that, make some observation. But with the augmented reality, or let's say even virtual reality, this is technology that allow people interact with the message of the brand, in case if we apply this to the marketing field. So I really was fascinated by this, and luckily for me, I met my one other co-founder, like Alexander, back in the day in Kiev, and he was one of the earliest people who got the beta from the Metaspark back in the day when it just released. And he a little bit told me about the, let's say, he started building the AR experience for the Instagram, and I saw the first result in his, when he posted this story with kind of face filter and Instagram. I'm like, wow, what is that? And because it's really drive a lot of attention, like all this AR experience right now in a few click in your mobile in social media. That was wild back then, and it's still. And we just have a friendly chat, and he actually opened up to me a completely different world and explain how this technology will evolve, and the idea that, again, there is potential demand on the market from the brand side. So brands will be interested to learn how to incorporate such technology into their marketing campaign or activities. And the idea was behind, okay, there's a clearly demand out there. So, and there is a folks who will serve this demand. So why not be these folks? So this is basically, the long story short, how I joined the AREYES studio. At the beginning, it was like just the four folks: Alex, his brother Alexei, and Sergey, our creative director. And I was basically the fourth person who joined the team. And the idea behind that was just to rethink the approach in terms of how to deliver the marketing message to the people by utilizing like gamification, like advertisement, like creativity, and augmented reality at the time. And when we moving on, we right now also not augmented reality, but also mixed reality. But at that time, the concept was like, this is augmented reality. We can use this technology to power up the marketers.
There's something you mentioned earlier that I think is one of the key drivers of technologies like this, which is content used to be presentational. It used to be, we are putting content in front of you and we're talking at you and we're just trying to get eyeballs on this content. And I think with 3D immersion, whether that be AR, VR, even just 3D games, it's a pivot from talking at you to experiencing with you. So instead of creating something to put in front of you, we're creating something for you to enter into and interact with. And it creates this kind of deeper connection between a brand and an audience for that marketing perspective. So I completely agree. I think most people that listen to the show and follow this type of technology would agree with that kind of premise for where you're going with this. Something I'm especially curious about is like for a founder, for a small team kind of coming together and creating an agency. But before we get into the structure of the team, let's do a quick reminder of what things were like in 2019. Because I feel like these hype cycles, like they've been getting shorter and shorter. The technology's evolved faster and faster. It really wasn't that long ago that we were just in basic Super Nintendo and a Nintendo 64 style games. It's only a couple of decades, So maybe you could talk us through, like, what was the environment like in 2019 when you first started? Were AR ads a thing? Did brands already do a lot of this, or what was kind of the status quo for this type of technology?
I would say, like, I would distinguish the whole AR field on a few waves. So we basically enter the second wave of when AR goes to the social experience. The first wave, when the company like Magically, Bleepar, Zapar, when it's like web AR was introduced to the public, and again, there is a lot of excitement. Brands and people start playing around with that. But again, there is there is no social element to this technology. So yeah, you can incorporate the AR in somewhere. You need to download the app and stuff like that. And of course, eventually, right now, we understand that people not really love to download. I mean, how much apps you have? Maybe very essential things like Uber, like, I don't know, finance, music, and stuff like that. But just for the 1/5, sometimes 30 seconds experience, will you be going to the app store, downloading some app, register to just I don't know, click the bottom, open the camera, and get the AR experience? I'm not sure. So the second era, when basically the leading this era was like Snapchat, who's acquired the one of the startup who produced the AR. It actually also was Ukrainian company in Odessa, but never mind. So they basically get this concept. So how to bring engagement in a daily interaction of the people in social media. So an idea was there's a technology, augmented reality, and it's much more easier way now for you when we spend a lot of hours let's say in Instagram and Snapchat. So it's much more easy and convenient way to engage with this technology because it's already integrated into the more broader ecosystem. So the second stage was, of course, when Meta acquired the Masquerade, and they basically start implementing and turn it into the Spark AR. And they basically start pushing put a lot of efforts into the engine, and yeah, in scale, on the scale of Meta, where like 1 billion people are even, or two.
Yeah, I think it's like 3 billion
It's
now.
yeah, 3 billion. I'm sorry, like
So I just
that's huge. So the main, so at that time it was not, I'm, how to say, at that time there is no such a tool as some kind of gamification element into the ads. So all advertisement, I would say, from perspective of like marketers, all advertisement was very like flat, static, maybe some motion, or video, some like trailers, but there is no engagement into this. So basically what AR give us is ability to marketers create some kind of interactive experience and engage with the customers or potential audience. So that was an insight, of course, and that's probably why this things is really ramping up in the early beginning, because everyone understand that now you already, as a brand or businesses, you already have a presence in social media. You invest a lot of resource, like human resource, financial resource, in building this kind of ecosystem, social media management, content management, and now you have a basically the port. You can integrate interactive product inside your ecosystem, inside the social media. That's very powerful. So people not needed and no longer needed go out and download the app. They can get this experience in very in few clicks. So
that's
that's
sorry to
probably,
cut you
yeah,
off. That's such an essential pivot point, right?
yeah,
We,
exactly,
we
exactly.
go from a world where you have to download a dedicated application to experience an AR experience, or you have to have a built out ecosystem like Snapchat, which
Yeah,
the equivalent for other formats would be like, do you want to go into Roblox or Fortnite where they already have millions and millions of users and create a game within that ecosystem versus creating your own custom branded game that someone has to go to separately from that ecosystem and you've
yeah,
got to go
exactly.
market to your own users, right?
You're totally right.
So that's a huge opportunity, is like, how do we reduce that friction? And I think over the years now we've seen some platforms like Niantic pop up that helps with kind of web AR experiences. I think Unity even has some of their own web formats for web AR now. Maybe you could talk us through the pros and cons of like, if you're going to go with a web-based AR experience versus a downloaded installed, is there any sort of performance or loss that you have when you go the web-based route? Like you're decreasing friction, but do you lose anything?
I think a downside, like the web AR has much more bigger potential overall. But again, the key point from the business perspective, again, I talking about from the business perspective, is that it's really hard to incorporate web AR into the existing ecosystem. So for the clients, they usually, I mean, they have a limited budget, and they try always, choose the more efficient way for any action campaign and stuff like that. So for them, it's much more easier to just to comprehend the idea that you can incorporate the AR experience or build the AR campaign inside the existing ecosystem that you have. So that's the key point. In terms of like building stuff, like building experience, web AR way more broader and not so limited by constraint of like policy and stuff like that. So I think web AR even now in the near future will have much more bigger potential. But from the current business perspective, it's much more easier and convenient for you to was at least still pitch the idea of the social AR, because all businesses already invest dozens of the resource into this ecosystem, social ecosystem, and they already have a like community there.
As we talk about kind of this evolution of AR for business use cases, I feel like marketing is the area for AR that makes the most sense. It's like, how do you kind of increase the interactivity of your content with an audience? And I think that's part of why brands keep getting drawn away from app installs and towards these more either web-based or native ecosystem-based AR tools, because they want to get as many eyeballs as possible most of the time. I know something I keep seeing pop up is like event-based AR with like geolocation. So like having like QR codes and being able to go from one booth to a different part of an event conference and kind of have these almost like customer journeys throughout a physical space, which is pretty interesting. I'm wondering, from your experience building out these AR experiences, do you have any specific examples that you want to share of like a project that was really impactful that drove like a really successful kind of outcome?
Um, yeah, for example, we partner with the Ford Europe, and the idea that back then it was campaigned, I guess, 2 years ago or something like that. So an idea behind that brand want to leverage the gamification as the connecting with the younger audience. So the client is recognizing the power of Spark AR as the, let's say, innovative tools for the ad, and they want to present the new urban suit, like the car, the vehicle, Ford Puma ST, showcase some kind of performances of the vehicle and stuff like that. So in this case, let's say we build the game like AR ads campaign, and it's basically served as the product placement, because the main character in this, let's say, game was the car, and and we use the let's say we recreate the real racing track that it's Brand Hatch, I guess. It's located in the South London. So we recreate this track by using like satellite data. There is a lot of things, technical aspect of this case, and most important, we be able to optimize this kind of the full-fledged game in just the 4 MB. Just understanding what is 4 MB, some of the picture in your iPhone can be like 5 to 10 MB, and this is a full game experience with the like environment, animation, kind of really complex mechanic. It's weighed like 4 MB, and so that was a very powerful campaign in the early on in the 2 weeks of the campaign. There's over like million views and probably 80,000 game session. So basically, people really spend their time into the game, and that's the insight that. If you look on the classical ads, the average time spent with the ad is like, I mean, in YouTube, it's probably 3 seconds. The only thing you need just to wait until the skip button, but the average one is like 10, 50 seconds. It's pretty good. It's pretty good result. But for the gamification and this particular campaign, the average time spent was like 40, 50 seconds. So people spend their time with the brand ads 40 or up to like minute, and this showcase that you can brand was able to build something really meaningful and exciting for the people. Even it's very short time, like short-term experience, but there is people again share this experience in the social media with the they community and friends and stuff like that, and basically people, there is, I don't know, up to 5,000 shares. It's probably not a lot, but it's basically unique. It's UGC, so people create the content with the brand game and share it online with their friends and community. And I think this is a very powerful if you compare in any other ads format that can perform in that way, that can generate you like 80,000 engagement with the average time spent like 50 seconds. It's average again. Someone can spend 10 seconds. Someone can like play 2 minutes in this game. So
What I
that's one of the, yeah.
what I love about that story is that like you mentioned, like kind of a pretty interesting use case of like an automotive company wanting to create essentially like a car based game to highlight their product in an AR format. But what I love about that story is the metrics of success that you're sharing around, like, okay, we think about generally how many users are interacting with the game, like we want to know if it was used, but that's more of like a checkbox. It's less of the success. The success is how long did they stick around, how long did they actually interact with this game versus a traditional just banner ad, or just like a short video or something.
Exactly,
And
because we,
when go ahead.
no, because we right now basically live in an attention economy, and in this economy, you need to really thinking again differently how to grab attention of your audience and give them something again fun, meaningful to play with. You know what I mean? So, and if you back then, you probably remember these clunky banners right now on somewhere in a interface in a websites. But right now we live in an era where advertising is much more interactive, and again the the um, how to say, there's merging like interactivity, gamification, and augmented reality that really lead to the new type of product or like use cases, and this is specifically one of those. So basically use the simple gaming mechanics. So we use gamification, we utilize the augmented reality technology, and merge this together and use it in a kind of new context in the social media, and it's really blow up.
There's a stat I saw you post about recently. Like I said at the beginning, I've been following your content for a while on LinkedIn. I think you share some really great stuff, and one of the data points you shared recently was that gaming makes up about 26% of all
Yeah,
content consumption hours
yeah,
now. And that's a huge number. I mean, we're talking about a quarter of content consumption. That could be reading articles, that could be watching Netflix shows, that could be watching YouTube videos. 26% goes to gaming. And one thing that I think's kind of fascinating about how people interact with games versus how they interact with other content. If I watch a movie, a long movie's 3 hours. A standard movie is like an hour and a half, 2 hours. God of War, like a blockbuster game, that's like 40 hours of gameplay, right? So like the amount of time that a user spends interacting with a movie versus interacting with one story dedicated in a gaming experience, it's drastically longer. I mean, we're talking about 20 times the amount of time someone will play through a story versus just consuming a story being told to them. So when we think about the opportunity for brands, I think the success metric you're looking at makes a lot of sense to me. It's not just how many people can we get in front of, but how deep of a connection can we make with those people? How much can we get them to emotionally connect and commit more time to spending with us as a brand and the stories we want to tell them? I think that's really, really fascinating. I want to use this case study, this kind of Ford example you talked about, to lean in a little bit more on the go-to-market strategy for an agency like this. How did that customer come to play? Like, did they find you? Did you find them? Talk us through a little bit of first interaction through the
yeah.
sales cycle.
That's a really good question. So I would back a little bit and provide a little bit more context. So the early, probably the first 2 years of the existence of the studio, we initially understand that we need to there is a, how to say, there, this type of innovational product was mostly interested by the big brands because they marketing departments have a resource in order to invest in R&D. So we understand that our like the main client is the big brands. So we start building, let's say the first 2 years we fully focus on the product, and product and services, and sharing our like insights, our let's say experiment with the community, in the global community. At the time it was a Spark Yard community, and this is the first environment where clients, again, all these people was fascinated about the technology, and they looking for someone skilled like teams studio who can provide this type of services. And that time there's really zero information about it, so the only source they can find it, it's just a global community. And we was really active at the early beginning. We was probably one of the first team who basically reinvent the genre of the AR games in the AR games in AR, specifically in the social AR. We port the simple 2D runner. I do remember that the Alexei, like our CTO, he just support the small version of AR game, and it's really start working when you can navigate the by your like face just capture your face, and you can navigate the gameplay by just by your face or face expressions, and that
So what
was
you're
really rare. Yeah, go ahead.
just to clarify, make sure I'm understanding. When you say with navigating with your face on like a runner, is this kind of like the Flappy Birds videos that I see where someone's like maybe doing push-ups and then the
Yeah,
bird
yeah, yeah,
is like
one of yeah,
mashing with
exactly,
the head,
exactly,
like the
exactly,
okay, okay.
exactly. So we always tend to follow to the old habit. So we use the old mechanics and try to apply it in a new context. In this, in the social AR, is basically this, follow to the same rule. So at the beginning, we was fully focused on building the products, and when we work with I do remember one of our first like biggest client was like global Red Bull headquarters, and they find one of our project in that community, and they reach out to us. And again, when we start working with the client, they really see the quality and dedication. In most of the case, they was okay with results, but our team was not okay, because we still, every project that we build is we treat them as our own product. We not say like, okay, we build it for the client. We build it firstly for ourselves, because this product will represent us in the front of the other client, and other people, so and community as well. So, and when I think this is the key of probably success, this kind of approach, because then we saw how when we first work with the clients, they start just recommend us to other folks out there, other agencies. And basically it was just like referral, just typical thing, but referral in a kind of very top level. And I do remember the situation when we received one of the brief from one larger brand, and they just say, hey guys, what's up, we want to build a game. And they show the brief, and they showcase basically our project, and they ask us, could you build this? We say, yeah, of course, this is our game basically. So of course we can build it. So that was a very i- good indicator that back then that we in the right path, because we was really laser focused on the product and the services. And that's how this approach help us to bring very like big well-known client, because they basically understand that we can pull this thing off.
I think with the nature of the type of service your agency provides, with it being so creative and then also technical, that makes a lot of sense to me, and it's pretty interesting. Basically, you were an active participant in online community, right? You were creating content, you were participating in the culture, and then just by being a participant in the culture and putting out good content, someone was able to then find you because you guys were putting yourselves out there. That's kind of what you were saying with the Red Bull situation. And then once you started having success where you were putting out these really successful campaigns, then it became a word of mouth and kind of an organic growth where people shared your work and then we're like, wait, I want to make ads like that. I'm going to go work with the guys who made the one that sparked my
Yeah.
attention, right? So that makes a ton of sense to me.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, in the early,
with
and I just want to add it, like in the early beginning, we understand that our, let's say, differentiator is like gamification. So we build an experience, but we always try to, let's say, communicate that we build in gamification. So usually clients really understand if they want a gaming things, there is a guys who really can build the complex gaming stuff. Like for example, this kind of for Puma game with optimization and quality. And usually when they saw, I mean, again, the marketers, it's very competitive market. So if one big name did something, other will try to copy, or at least do the same stuff, and they look on up who can deliver the same kind of quality. And there's not too much, is the handy amount of studio who really have this kind of expertise to merge in like augmented reality gaming and build such experience for the social platform that exists in right now.
Well, especially with you guys starting back in 2019, because I mean, that's pretty early for this stuff, right? And like now you guys are some of the most experienced people that have been out here doing it for years. Um, when I worked in content, that was a big thing too. I used to work in photo and video content production, and those customers talk to each other. Like they very much go out and they're extroverted, they're marketers, they want to know what the best practices are and who people are using, and it's all about kind of de-risking results, because it's such a subjective creative thing that you want to find people that you trust. And the best way to do that is to go see portfolios of work and people that have actually executed on these kind of campaigns before. Out of curiosity, like what are the actual personas? So like when you're, say, like one of these big brands comes to you with a brief, like what is the actual kind of role and responsibility of the buying committee? Who are the people that are buying these type of advertisements?
I would say probably this is mostly, let's say, people who really deep in innovation and want to do something extraordinary. Um, I mean, again, as we build the stuff for the marketing purposes, so it's head of the marketing or head of innovation, or even sometimes like creative director who saw something like that, in a web and want to do something like that as well. So basically, this is a three type of people: like marketers, like creative people, and like people who are responsible for innovation inside the company and big brands. And I would say, like, there's a lot of there's a lot of effort from our side, and I know from all the community in terms of education, because right now education is the one of the most important aspect, for the success of the technology. Because I saw that there's such a big gap between AR community and the marketing community, because like all immersive folks like AW, there is specific conference, love to hang out together, yeah, and marketers would love to hang out together. And I'm personally like a marketer person, and I realized when I start chatting with the marketers, they like fascinated by the technology, but they don't know what the entering point is. So they don't know how to start for something. So it's really important for those who build the experiences, or like immersive tech, is start to chatting with the like marketers or people like brands, and understand what the drivers, what the some kind of desires, or how you can help them like navigate the sometimes complex, uh, let's say, um, like obstacles, I would say, in this case. So we in our studio, we really put a lot of effort in education, just to speak with the marketers, speak in their own language, speak in terms of not like, look, this we build so fancy experience. We talk about like, this is ROI, this is how much you can, like some kind of metrics, how you can calculate the metrics, what the process is, what the difference between this type of experience and that type of experience. And I realized with the time, that, let's say, if we take the whole cohort of the clients, probably 70% of the people was just who reach out to us was just fascinated about AR, but they don't know anything about what they want to build. So your goal is just to take their hand and navigate them through all kind of aspect of experiences that's suitable for specific their goal and their needs. The like probably 20% of the client understand type of product. For example, the with example of the Ford team, they understand they want they want a gamification. So when with folks reach out to us, they were like, give us clear brief. We want a kind of immersive experience with element of gamification. Can you help us? So we understand, okay, this is, very clear type of product that you can pitch to the client. And there is a very, again, handy amount of client, very technical. Usually it's other developers or market makers who can give you the really clear technical brief, what they want, what type of product and stuff like that. But that's very, small percentage of the client. But the vast majority of people just hear about AR again, and this hype, and especially during the hype cycle. And your goal is to really help them walk through from point A to point B to really have a good experience, even though the product not showcase the good performance, but this person will back again because, I mean, at least try in another experience, because the whole client experience was really good. They participate in creating some very complex products, because back then, again, from why the reason why gaming right now in 2024 become the new marketing verticals, because the gamification, building gamification product became much more easier with a platform like Snap, Lens, 8 Wall. So you can build the gamification experience, and your goal is just to uh, make sure that the client is really involved into the project and see all that magic that happened, in the first place. So that's very
I,
crucial point, I guess.
I love this. I'm gonna get the quote wrong, but I was talking to the founder of Cora VR a little while ago, and they do more enterprise VR type experiences, less like the AR ads. But
Mhm.
he describes his role and his agency's role as essentially bridging the gap between the technology and the needs of his clients. So he's never going to know as much as like a environmental like oil and gas company about the oil and gas industry. Like whatever that company is, they're going to be experts in their needs. And if they're an HR executive, they're going to know the company culture and their people. And to try and as an outside vendor be an expert in those things doesn't make any sense. The client's going to understand those needs better than us always. But when it comes to the technologies and the tools, when it comes to how VR works, when it comes to how AR ads work, like that's where the agency has the expertise and knows how these things work. And so it's our role as client facing people to help the client bridge that gap, like how help them organize their thoughts and their information in a way that's helpful, and then present ideas of how to use the technology to achieve those goals. And I love that you brought up how only a small percentage of clients come with like a brief in mind, like where they're ready to go and they already know exactly what they want from you. I would guess the vast majority of your clients don't. And so I wonder if you have a client that comes to you and is just, hey, we want to drive more engagement. Like our goal is to deepen relationships with customers. We're curious about AR ads, but they don't actually know what type of ad they want to run. How do you handle that conversation and kind of help them put the dots together and get to a project?
That's a really good question. Actually, we start like from backwards. We start from the problem or goal that they have in the first place. So because sometimes the client want an AR or some any other immersive experience, but our goal as the studio just figure out, is it really neat? Is there any other solution out there maybe that suitable more for their goals? So we try to start initially from just a briefly chat with the client. Sometimes we even like push them in order to fill out the brief, or like in a brief as a form, or just during the meeting, just to give us the short like overview of the goals, the needs, the
Do you
audience,
have
the
do you
businesses.
have like a brief template or like an
Yeah,
outline of
we
what
do.
what, what
We
type
do.
of
But again,
information
it's very
goes into
we,
that?
we have a like kind of template for that. But again, from client to client, it's really different. And the most awesome part that I noticed during these 5 years of the journey, that um, more and more client who, let's say, we reach the phase where clients is well educated in some sort of thing, and we start seeing more brief. For example, the last 2 years, we start seeing more and more like very, like, let's say, well organized briefs from the client, from their needs, what they want, some kind of reference. Because at the early beginning, it was like really wild west. Well, we want AR, but we want to know anything about this technology. Maybe we just want it, and that was probably one of the hardest thing, because sometimes you really understand, me as, again, as the marketers, there is a bunch of tools out there, and for this specific things, probably you can choose something less fancy, or like, let's say, like not luxurious but more efficient, and time consume not such a time consume, but it's just more efficient regarding their budget and they let's say approach or the problem.
What are some examples of when it's not a fit, right? So you mentioned like you really want to start with validating, like, hey, this is really going to help you achieve your goals. Like, what's an example of some things you look out for that are like, if I hear this or that, it's a sign that AR ads might not be the right fit for this person?
uh First and foremost, that people, it's, would say, first, it's a sales. Sometimes when people mix sales and AR, so when clients, I mean, they reach out to you with the idea, we want to build the experience, let's say not mark any like AR, VR, and MR. We just want to build experience, and we want to drive, let's say, sales. And you need to figure out first, I really, does the client have an expertise or knowledge about that this particular experience drive, let's say, sales? You know what I mean? So if you have a the brief or request from a client, our goal is to drive sales. Okay, that's when you can create some kind of like, the mapping, what kind of approach you can take as as the studio or as the agency or as the company, what kind of tooling you have, what strategy you apply to achieve this goal. But when it starts from the, we want to build we want to build this in order to do that, you can, expect, there is few cases that you understand that this kind of experience or tool or approach not really lead to this kind of outcomes, and it's very clear. And that's my, probably the, red flag for the clients, when I start just chatting about actually they problems and they goals, instead of what we want to build, what they want to build.
Yeah, it's almost like if you were tracking like a Super Bowl commercial, like
Yeah,
direct sales is probably not the metric for the success of that Super Bowl
exactly.
commercial. It's probably more like, what's your web traffic? Does it go up
Yeah,
like crazy? Are
exactly.
people going and exploring and looking at you? And the conversion to sales might be 3 months from now or 6 months from now when they see three more ads. But that massive spike in eyeballs paying attention to you, spending time with your brand, it's a different stage in the sales funnel that you're focused on. So that makes a ton of sense. Trying to align the stage of the customer with the type of content you want to engage with them at. What is like if someone wants to get into making AR ads, like I think that budget is a really complicated topic when we're thinking about creative projects, especially AR and VR projects. And I think it's intimidating to a lot of people. They start to think, if I want to do an AR campaign, do I need $1 million? Like, do I need $150,000? Like, what type of budget do people generally spend if they're going to create a series of AR ads?
um Actually, there is a range, and depends on the businesses, and depends on the solution, and depends on the quality. So there is a quality of the expectation regarding the quality, the expectation regarding the type of the product or experience they want to build. So the budget can start, you can find in the fever some freelance ER creators who can build you a very simple ER experience for the social for, I don't know, $100 to the big studio who can, pull up the full-fledged game experience with the multiple level, multiple interaction, that, can cost like 50, $100,000. So it's very depends. Same thing in, I guess, in VR, depends on the project. Sometimes it's very simple VR experience, but sometimes it's just multiplayer game with the, 5 levels and stuff like that. So it's completely different, like league of the project. And again, the type of the clients. But we as a studio try to build different solution for the folks out there. Before, I mean, I probably you was familiar that Spark AR was that the Meta decided sunset the Spark AR. So back then
I've been
I
meaning
mean, it's
I've been meaning to
uh,
ask you about that because you mentioned Spark AR like maybe 3 or 4 times, and this is brand new, right? Like a couple weeks ago,
yeah,
they
it's
removed
I
it.
mean, yeah.
So
Um,
maybe sorry, this is a total pivot from what we were talking about, but that is really interesting to me. So I'm not as deep in the AR ecosystem. It's part of why I'm excited to talk to you. Is I'm deeper in like the virtual reality side of things,
yeah.
and more non-marketing use cases lately. But with Spark AR, it seems like a big deal. Like it seems like this is something a lot of creators were relying on. A lot of creators were using it for these type of use cases. Like as a developer, as an agency that used it, what's the impact of it being sunset? And like how does that affect you guys?
I would say, like, let's say, few step backs. Well, the decision, it's really create different emotion among the AR community. But for me personally, it's a more like a appreciation because the technology potential is truly incredible. And as a company who we're thrilled to have been part of this from the very beginning because basically Spark has really played a crucial role for us as a company in the early beginning. But more than anything, the news gives kind of for me chance to reflect about the again hype cycle and importance of education, the market, and stuff like that. So the first of all, like watching how the platform takes off from the scratch to really maturity stage, seeing how the more like 200 or 300,000 creators appear in the market, passionate about AR. Most of them right now is learn without no technical background, learn how like hardcore visual programming. And as far as I know, a lot of from them is the females, so which is really rare for the technical field, for example, like programming and stuff, if you make the basic statistics. And uh, and again, and see how this market really grow. But for me, at the same time it become like obvious that idea of the social entertainment probably through the specifically facial augmentation and expression hasn't delivered the expected value or business value for the meta to justify the expense. And as the industry right now shifting towards let's say mixed reality and wearable devices, I guess it's just wise to reset the most importantly market expectation, learn from some maybe mistakes, and identify the workable use cases and verticals where it's really show great result or an ROI, and and figure out how to make AR truly valuable on a larger scale with a new approach. And most importantly, I think for the meta, they just find a new approach. So I'm personally looking forward to the Meta Quest, Meta Connect in the end of
Yeah, it's
September
coming up.
to see what they
Yeah.
show. But I think it's yeah, it's from once in the short term it's sad, but from long term, I guess this is very a wise decision in some case. And from overall like looking as the industry of AR right now, we can see like 300 really technical people passionate about AR will just fill the market. And there is a lot of bunch of use cases we understand for ourselves. For example, where AR is like automotive, for me it's one of the best example when uh, utilizing gamification, augmented reality show the really interesting result, and metrics, and the client excitement. So I think again on my personal feeling that we can we need to wait a little bit and see what kind of new approach Meta taking towards AR and mixed reality, and how it will be fit with the wearable kind of form factor.
Yeah, I'm eagerly excited to see what the updates are at MetaConnect. I agree with you. I have a feeling that there's going to be some sort of update and like new story being told. It's not going to be like the complete end of the story. I think they're too invested in immersive technologies and the direction it's going. They're really leading the way there. And so to let go of AR wouldn't make sense to me. I feel like there's going to be something. Um,
Yeah.
a question for you as someone who's like one of the most experienced AR developers, right? Like you've been around this for a long time now. Right now in the current state of the technology, if you had infinite budget and capital to invest in solving a problem, like what's one of the biggest problems in AR development right now that you wish someone would go start a company and go fix?
Wow, man, that's a really good question. First and foremost, for me, AR is a technology. It's not about like product; it's about the feature. So idea is to learn how to utilize the technology for some specific context, or again, problem. And I see the most promising is, first of all, education, of course, medicine. There is a multiple example. Like, let's say I know the very interesting startups, Sketchar, I guess. So the folks help people learn how to, draw by using augmented reality. So the kids, and again, in this case, particular case, AR is just a feature, not the product itself. And I would look on this technology in this kind of fashion. And the also my personal observation about AR, it will play a crucial role in the future user interface, or let's say next phase platforms, because everything that I mean, we still locked with this kind of devices that not really change since, I don't know, 70s. Maybe we have a smaller screens now, we don't have a keyboards and mouse, but anyway, this is a form factor. But AR is kind of the technology that allow information go out in our physical world and interact with that. So for me, that's how I look on AR. And there is a bunch of problems out there. I would say I will definitely see the big potential in education first and foremost, and healthcare and medicine.
It's pretty wild. Like your point about taking away from the screen and bringing digital content into physical space. Like I was thinking about this because I work at Arthur. Arthur's a virtual collaboration tool, and I had this meeting where I was in Lake Tahoe at my family's cabin, and I was out on the deck, and I've got my Quest 3 on, and I look a little silly. It's one of the biggest things I think with the headsets.
Yeah,
Everyone
yeah, I
feels
know
a little
that.
silly wearing them still. But I'm out there. I've got my gloves on because it's cold, and I've got my headset and my controllers, and I'm meeting with three coworkers, and one of them is in Pakistan, one's in India. Or actually, it might have just been the two of them for this meeting. But I turned on my pass through mode, and their avatars are on the deck with me, and it's like I have a hologram version of each of them right there on the deck as I'm having my coffee and chatting with them out there. It's like they teleported to me in Lake Tahoe. And it made me start thinking of like Star Wars with the board meetings where you've got the blue holograms. And I think instead of having a physical hologram, having these wearables that allow the hologram to appear as if they're in front of you, that's already kind of here. Like that exists. It's tangible. It has friction points. It's like not everyone has the hardware yet. Like there's things that we need to solve for. But the fact that that exists, the fact that this thing that we used to just dream about watching in movies and television shows is actually attainable right now is pretty crazy. It's not a 10-year away or a 20-year away thing. Like versions of that already exist.
We already live in many people not understand it, but we already live in the future. And the idea of that you mentioned, the Quest 3, the same thing. All this with the, with hand tracking and pass through, it's mind blowing what you can do with interface, because again, we're not locked with this kind of 2D concept. We live as a human being, we live in a 3D world, but from so long period of time we was locked in this 2D kind of paradigm shift. And finally, with like immersive technology, specifically with MR and AR, I would say AR as the like general terms, we can finally like you know, um, just rethink the interface as it is and how we interact with the world and information. And the idea of the hand tracking and pass through is it's extremely powerful. And again, with the smartphone era, with kind of all allow us captivating this multi-touch screen technology. So we start because again, let's say we have a very natural input method. It's our it's our hands. It's just a gesture interaction, and gesture interaction in the spatial computing will be the key thing, and we already moving towards that. I was recently just opened my Meta Quest also devices and watching some. I just tried to watching some movies, and it so shocked me that I can like put the interface in one side of my room, the huge screen in front of me. I just scroll it. It's so simple. It's so natural. It's kind of really. I feel like it's a magic, man. Really. And I
Yeah.
understand this is happened with me. It's not like kind of some surreal movie. It's happened right now, and the device costs like Quest 3. It costs, I don't know, $600. You can buy it and you already can feel yourself in the future. And I can easily see in the short term, and let's say next 3-4 years, when the Meta will launch their first smart glasses, even maybe with the element of augmentation or augmented reality, they already building the platform to that.
Well, it's so much more human, right? Like
Yeah,
this is a conversation I was having with Suni Wolf from Synergy XR, and we were talking about how the keyboard was invented in like the 60s, and the keyboard is incredibly unnatural. Like it's very very unnatural, and it's easy to forget because all of us spend so much time
much
working on
time with the
keyboards and
keyboard.
laptops and
Exactly,
the muscle
exactly,
memory. Like we've trained our brains to wire
exactly.
this way. But the way we did that is in elementary school, we went to typing class, and then we spent all of our time typing for homework and for socializing with chats. And we just developed and rewired our brains to think this way. And the easiest test to remind ourselves of how unnatural it is just use a different shaped keyboard. Like go pull out like an ergonomic keyboard if you don't use one, or like something that's just differently shaped, or a different language. Like if like I speak Spanish, if I had a Spanish keyboard, or like go to anything that's like slightly different, and you'll just notice how slow and how hard it is to find the right keys. It's
Yeah.
incredibly challenging because the way that we communicate is with our hands and our facial expressions and our voice
Now
and our
voice.
tone.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So being able to leverage AI and AR and these sensors, I think that there's a very realistic future where the keyboard and mouse disappears and the way in which we communicate completely changes, because it's the way we already communicate with each other. It's just evolving how we communicate with the computer to match the way that we communicate with each other. It's getting the computer to have the sensors and the ability to understand this
Yeah,
very
exactly.
human way of communicating.
Exactly, exactly. And we're really stuck in this paradigm like two D like small screens. And I with the latest, I mean, again, update from the Meta or like AVP from the Apple Vision Pro. Apple Vision Pro. You see how we really make such a huge leap, forward to this kind of a paradigm of natural interaction with the interface. And I'm actually like, really bullish about the idea, the concept. I don't know if you're familiar with the AR cloud. So I think this will be probably a really big deal in the next decade or so. So that's kind of thing that I'm personally really passionate about. So yeah,
This has been great. There's other things I'd love to talk to you about, but we're coming
yeah,
on time. I think the last thing with our last couple minutes is I saw that you posted recently about going to IFA Berlin, a massive electronics show, 1,800 exhibitors, 182,000 attendees from all over the world, 139 countries, I think. And I've been to a few of these conferences here in the States, like CES and of course
yes, I've been in
AWE, and
CS.
like there's a lot to be gained from these, but I think that everyone's got their own kind of social energy. Some people are very introverted, some are very extroverted. And so I'm curious, going to that event, like how do you prepare yourself for an event like that? And what was the experience like going to that one in particular?
Man, to be quite honest, it was really accident because there is one startup with whom I would love. I plan to chat. It's from the Korea. There is a Korean delegation of different startup that represent a solution in different fields, mostly in AI. So that's probably the whole conference was just about one meeting. But overall, I saw the again trend on the smart glasses. There is a lot of I was lucky to test few example of the Chinese companies who really already market their products pretty successful, decent product, I would say. Smart glasses. There's a lot of robotics there. So my let's say key takeaway from this kind of conference is that you can see the major trends in specific fields. Again, for me, it was like I saw the wearable glasses is a really massive stuff right now. So like and you can compare this with all these media buzz and sometimes okay this is just a media, but no, you go to the field in the real in the real ground and you see no, there's a lot of competition, there is a lot of companies who invest in that, try to market this product. So you understand that a lot of players out there and have a skin in the game, and this help you really understand or adjust your strategy regarding some industry or field. And I'm as a very I'm very curious about everything, so I like to ask the question what the problem is. So for me, such conference is more about sometimes learn about potential industry and ask the question what some, let's say, clients or in some case partners, what the problem they're facing. So this help you understand if something that you built or let's say knowledge or expertise that you have can help them solve their problem. So for me, EFI was more about just to see some upcoming trends, really massive trends. It's again in robotics and smart glasses, and yeah, just friendly meetings and just catching up with old friends, stuff like that from the industry.
Yeah, it's always fun getting to go to a place where like when I talk about VR stuff with my friends and family, sometimes it's boring to them but fun for me. And going to places like that, it's like I get to find
Yeah,
my people and I get to nerd out with
yeah,
people
yeah,
who are
yeah,
just as
yeah.
excited. And I think you're right. It's like an opportunity to see who's marketing there, and then also an opportunity to have like 100 back-to-back conversations about this stuff and just
Exactly.
see what people are focused on. Doubling down on the trend you talked about with wearable glasses, you know how big that's getting is I had a friend yesterday who's not in the industry at all, works in a totally different field. And she mentioned that she bought a pair and they just came in and they're a brand I had never heard of. And it's like a pair of augmented reality glasses for virtual monitors. So that way she can have two monitors with her when she's traveling and when she's out on the balcony and be able to do work without having to lug around a monitor. And seeing that use case resonate with someone who's not XR native, they're outside the
Yeah.
echo chamber enough for them to buy the product, order it, and start using it. That's a huge green flag for me that I'm like, that's a use case worth doubling down on. If it's getting out of the XR echo chamber into non-evangelists, that's a pretty big deal. And it makes sense that there's more and more of those brands popping up. I think we're kind of coming up to the end of the pod, but I've really enjoyed the conversation and hearing more about your story. And I think it's a great opportunity if there's anything that you're working on that you'd like to plug for the studio or for yourself, or if you want to tell people where to follow and find more from you. Like I said earlier, I love your LinkedIn content. I think that's great. But
I
if there's
appreciate
anything
it.
else that you want to plug, just now's the opportunity.
I think we will participate in this. I don't know if someone in Europe will participate in AWE in Vienna. So just swing by to say hi. We probably will showcase few our like mixed reality and VR projects out there. So again, for those who are interested, we'll be happy to catching up there. But yeah, and thanks, Rick, again for having me. And it's pleasure to have a conversation with like-minded people, as you mentioned before. and yeah, sharing. Thank you for give opportunity to share my story.